Hello, and welcome to Fusion Writing, where building character meets creating structure. Well, this is our second topical week of the month, and we are excited to share a continuation of the line that we began last week. So, for our Monday compass, I'll turn it on over to Victoria to get us started. Victoria?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So what we were talking about in the last episodes were different ways of challenging your protagonist, which is generally your main character. You want to have points in the story that allow them to grow, that allow the reader to get to know them better and maybe start to anticipate what kind of person they're going to be and therefore what kind of character they'll be. And you also leave clues to what kind of story this is going to be. So one of the ways that we can do that is by, I like to call it toggling the different kinds of antagonists. Now, we've already talked about how your villain is definitely a kind of antagonist, but you also have these other characters that aren't evil, that aren't an arch nemesis. They don't qualify as the villain. They're just there as either speed bumps or touch points. I get this question a lot, though. What if I'm not writing a conflict-driven novel? What if I'm writing more of a character-driven or a discovery story? Do I even need an antagonist? The short answer is yes, you do, but it's not going to look the same as it would in a conflict-driven novel. Here's why. When you're growing a character-driven narrative that doesn't rely on bombs blowing up and somebody getting kidnapped and big challenges that have to be overcome, it's more of a quiet story or more of a discovery story. You still need those touch points that allow your reader to get to know the character and to move them through the story. So you might use something like an observation. Perhaps the character begins in the first couple of chapters with a certain attitude or a certain set of values, or maybe a certain perspective. And when you get to that first touch point where you want to reveal something about them, you insert an observation that they make. So rather than something external challenging them as a conflict would, they observe something or something about their perspective is revealed. That can be just as powerful if you do it right as a writer, as conflict-driven stories are exciting and full of momentum. Another way you can do that is, what if the character gains an insight? You can have something external that triggers it, or it can be something that they come to as a result of a shift in their own internal story. And that gives them an insight that they didn't have before. That then energizes the story and pushes them forward, because in the excitement of this discovery, coming across this insight, now they're barreling full speed into the story. Another way to do that is perhaps with a meditation. What if you take a quiet moment in the story and you have that character maybe move through time? Always consider time as an extra bonus antagonist. Because think about it, if you're using this feature of a meditation, you can go into the past, into the present, or into the future. So those are the kinds of things that you can take a look at. So I'll leave you there because we'll go much deeper into this, but start thinking about, how can I use this in my story? With that question, I'll throw it over to Kathleen.
Oh, thank you, Victoria. What an enticing introduction. I could listen right now for the detail that you're going to present us tomorrow, so I can't wait. Well, I'm continuing with the topic of meekness. Last time we talked about what is the definition of meekness? How does the technical term differ from the common usage of the term? Well, this week, we're going to go into a little bit more of the detail in terms of what does it feel like to achieve the victory state for meekness? What does the lost state look like for meekness? And because meekness is a balanced trait, that means there's always going to be two lost states. So how do the two lost states differ? And how does the struggle for meekness take place? What goes on in the mind of your character when they're struggling with meekness? Do you remember ever struggling with meekness? It's a little bit of a less common experience. Usually we are or we aren't in the place that we are, and also for our characters. But there are always those times when it comes into focus. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about tomorrow when we dive into the map. So come on back and we'll explore meekness in a little more detail. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.